Hello everybody, it's me, GhostCritic. It's a Sunday, so it must be a comic book review video. If you've seen my previous Wednesday video, my pull list video, you'll know that I picked up 6 new titles this week, and now it's time to let you know what I thought about them. Just a warning, spoilers. There may be parts of the story that I want to talk about, and if you've not read them yet, I would suggest you moving the video along until you don't see the copy of the issue on the screen, because then I'll have started talking about another one. So, don't want to spoil anything for anybody, and let's kick off with our first book, which is going to be very quick to talk about. It's issue 29 of Star Wars. Quick, because I haven't read it yet. We often talk about books and how we read them. Do we put them in certain order of reading them? And to be fair, Star Wars is usually a book that gets put to the bottom. Not particularly because it's a bad book, it's just not one that I am kind of raring to read, and why I still haven't got round to reading this yet, which does kind of lead me to my next point about this book. Despite the fact that I'm entertained by it, it's Star Wars, it's sci-fi, it's all that good stuff that I like, but I just don't feel any oomph to it. I don't feel like anything that happens in here has any kind of gravitas to the story. Given that it's between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, all our main characters, you know, are going to survive the stories in them, and it kind of diminishes the tension or the sense of excitement or adventures of the stories. I think I've said this many times before with Star Wars and the comics that kind of are between the movies. You're never going to have a major character die in these books. That's going to happen in your movies. So the people that do die, the people that consequences do happen to them within these stories, they're not really kind of massive characters that you're gonna gravitate to and bring to your heart, so to speak. They're just going to be kind of little bit characters that you might see for a storyline. So I've got to think about whether I still want to pick up Star Wars now that it's almost 30 issues in and I'm feeling like this. Moving on to Moon Knight, Jeff Lemire, Greg Smallwood and Jordi Belair. This is issue 12. I think there are 2 more, maybe 3 more issues to go on this before Jeff Lemire wraps up his story and Moon Knight is no more for the time being. And in this issue we had Mark Spector about to be sacrificed to some sort of Egyptian tribe cult group, and just as we thought that Mark Spector had kind of put all his kind of split personalities, in essence destroyed them, they come to his rescue, and you get this kind of feeling of, you know, you may not want us, but you're going to need us at some points. So, you know, don't completely discard us. You'll never be able to 100% destroy us. We're always going to be around, and I guess we're not gonna kind of be such a big major part of your life that's going to screw you up, because that's the kind of feeling that we've had for so long in Moon Knight books, that his personalities have kind of taken over him, and obviously, as we saw right at the very beginning, he's maybe have ended up in an asylum because of it. So maybe they're kind of going to take a step back and only help out at those dire moments, and so we have the kind of the Moon Knight, the traditional cloaked, billowing kind of cape and the mask, coming to his rescue. You've got Steve Grant running in with having rescued this Egyptian goddess that Mark Spector was trying to rescue so he could get Crawley back, and the weird Moon Knight from space version of his psyche comes in and flies them away to safety. In a way, you could kind of say it was a bit Deus Ex Machina, but it was kind of nice to have to know that these personalities haven't been completely squashed down, that they are still there and enjoying the adventure. And we seem to we have these little kind of flashbacks of Mark Spector's life in his assassin mercenary persona. And the big kind of bit at the end is one of Moon Knight's kind of major villains, adversaries turn up in a flashback sequence. That is, of course, Bushman. This character, if you can see, the lighting isn't great here today. I'm enjoying this. I had to think a bit for a second there, and I really didn't need to. I've really enjoyed Jeff Lemire's story, this kind of maybe 14-15 issue long story arc. As I said in previous ones, I hope that when Moon Knight does come back, because you know it's going to in another series with newer creative team, with a new issue #1, I'd like them to go away from the whole personalities kind of clashing with each other and causing Mark Spector to go a bit doolally, and just concentrate on an adventure story, a villain to go up against that's not just himself. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Greg Smallwood's artwork and Jordi Belair's colours have been great, not just in the flashback sequences, but in this kind of topsy-turvy Egyptian mythology kind of land that we've found ourselves in. But will be very sad to see Moon Knight go. I've loved this character. Often people call him the kind of Marvel version of Batman, but I think there's more to Moon Knight than just that similarity. Moving on to issue 30 of The Woods, James Tinian's sci-fi abduction ongoing series, which has had its ups and downs. I think most of us who are reading this are of the same opinion. James Tinian doesn't do steady. He doesn't do kind of like steady storylines. You get this for a very long time, and then suddenly it will go up there, and then it'll go back down, and then we'll have it. It's just so sporadic in its excitement levels. There are moments, and it's always at the point where I'm thinking, I've got a feeling I'm going to drop this book very soon, and then something really exciting happens and it grabs back my attention, but it's so few and far between. I find it very difficult to focus on this book, to get invested in any of the characters. I mean, here we have Karen, who's kind of the leader of the school kids, who is going to their supposed enemy and hopefully make kind of a peace treaty to work together against this strange technology that kind of runs through this whole kind of war planet. But it's not going to go the way she wants it, as Techo lures her into his kind of encampment, makes them kind of breathe in this drug hallucinatory pollen kind of stuff that populates the world, and basically captures her. And it doesn't look that great for our characters back on Earth either. The FBI have got involved. They've trying to cover up the return of one of the abductees. And the little kind of animal pet thing that's been around forever, that seems to have found a friend too. Maybe something else came with Tsunami, who came back to Earth from the planet. And I feel again as though something is building up and up. Just Tinian really needs to wind the generator up and get there just a little bit faster and maintain all of that good stuff that there is in here. On to issue 18 of Doctor Strange, another Jason Aaron book with Chris Bachalo on art. And I was a bit mystified at the end of last issue with Thor, our Lady Thor, turning up, and I was just kind of wondering, well, why is she turned up? And all is revealed in this issue. For those of you who are reading Doctor Strange at the moment, we have our kind of main enemy villain, Misery, having taken his friend, his butler, his sidekick, Wong, and kind of meshed himself, I guess, into Wong and taken control of him. And he's turning everything that was good in his life and all the good he'd done in his life against him, such as all the lives he saved through his medical procedures, his operations that he did when he was a real doctor. And he's kind of reverted them all back. So the tumours that he'd removed, they're back again. There's quite a darkness to this book, that when they're removing the tumours, these are parts of Misery, and Doctor Strange is kind of eating this, taking in the pain and the misery that has been part of his life for years, and instead of embodying them in this kind of Misery character and hiding it away like he did in the bottom of his house, and having then the Empirical release it accidentally, he's taking the responsibility, he's taking on that pain and the agony of all the battles, all the deaths he's seen, and bringing them back inside him. But it's the clever use of Thor here, because as we know, Thor at the moment is Jane Foster. And what was Jane Foster? She was a doctor herself. Because Doctor Strange can't actually perform this now, that is kind of his whole raison d'etre for being Doctor Strange. And he he asks for Jane Foster's help in performing and reversing what Misery has done to all these people and save their lives. Of course, it comes to a crescendo, and it looks like we're going to get an all-out battle and hopefully save Wong's life at the end of this story. I like the fact that Doctor Strange's magic is starting to come back now, and he's becoming back to full power. We see some jolly good action as well going on. I really like Doctor Strange. I said last week, because we had a change of artists, we saw Fraser Irving, and it was nice to get that feel of someone new drawing the book, because Aaron and Bachalo are finishing their run very soon, and we're going to have a brand new creative team on Doctor Strange. I've loved Aaron and Bachalo's version of Doctor Strange, the story they've been telling, the way they've shown Stephen Strange's world, the magic within it, the way Stephen sees the world with the demons, kind of clasping on to people that only he can see. It's been great. Bachalo's really done a good job in creating this Doctor Strange version of the universe that we live in. So it's going to be interesting, not only what the new creative team are, but what they will do and how they will show this universe in their eyes. Penultimate book this week is Paper Girls, issue number 12, and I just saw Tim's video of Paper Girls, and he has a point. He has his point about Paper Girls, and I would never ever take that away from him. I actually really like Paper Girls. Is it my 80s, what I recall of this? No, not at all. This is in America. It's about 4 paper girls. They're going on time travel adventures. It began in the 80s. It came to the present day. We've seen glimpses of the future. But now, in this issue, the girls are still stuck in prehistoric times, as we see by this kind of cave girl character with her baby and this big kind of huge hairy mammoth monster type thing, but within all that crazy prehistoric adventure stuff that's going on, there are some very sweet touches of these girls coming to terms with their adulthood, them growing up, and we see this most with the 2 girls, one of them who had been washed away in the river, and their girl, it's very hard to remember their names. That's kind of a bad thing with this book, that I don't often recall their names, but their kind of touching moment as they're kind of cleaning themselves up, and one of the girls having her first period, and the awkwardness that comes about that, but it's done in such a kind of very tender and sweet way that it becomes quite, I don't know if enamouring is the best word to use, but it just has this kind of quaintness about it. These girls that are fighting just in weird adventures in time, and having to cope with their kind of 80s aesthetic, their 80s thinking, but dealing not only with stuff in our present day but now in prehistoric times, and basically all they want to do is get home and live their lives. I like this. I'm enjoying it very much as a time travel kind of buddy adventure book. So that's Paper Girls. Now, finally, as if you couldn't guess what my favourite book was going to be this week, it is, of course, Jeff Lemire's A Royal City. I have been waiting for this book for many a month when I first saw it solicited, and there's not often times where a book kind of takes me back to a moment in my life, and kind of I see similarities, as small as they may be, I can interpret into my life, and it gets an emotional reaction out of me, and that's certainly what this first bumper-sized issue of Royal City did. I'm going to talk firstly about the back matter in this book. There's a little kind of essay chat from Jeff Lemire about this book, and it kind of brings a couple of things that I didn't know or didn't kind of get from Jeff Lemire, because stuff like Neil Gaiman, I've watched so many interviews with him on YouTube. I love the way he talks and the stories he tells, and obviously he comes across as a very confident gentleman. Jeff Lemire I've never watched. I don't know his accent, I don't know his demeanour, and it wasn't till after I read this that I wanted to go and find some interviews, because I got a very strange picture of the writer, and it's very strange because it came across as very underconfident. There's an unsurety about his work that I feel coming from him. I understand his nervousness, as he says in here. We're in this culture of comic books where there are hundreds to choose from. So how do you possibly get your book that much attention to warrant it keep going on and do what you love, write and draw what you love? But I want him to be more confident about this book, because the first issue was so good and it just hit me in so many good places. The book is And this is a difficult. The first phrase I want to say is, and he hates this if you read from the back. It almost feels like this slice of life kind of book, and he doesn't want you to call that this. And I get the whole idea that you've got a lot of people have this preconceived notion of a slice of life story means boring. I personally don't think that at all. But he does say he's kind of bursting out of those genre boxes. There's going to be some crime and violence in here. There's going to be some fantastical elements to it. What else did he say? There's going to be a little bit of sci-fi in there, and there's a little bit of kind of a horror vibe to it with, I guess, sort of ghosts. But the book, from the very first issue, what we can gather from it, it's certainly about a dysfunctional family, a family that is very kind of torn apart for many reasons. You have the mother and father who are not the most loving. Let's put it this way: they seem very estranged from each other. And it is not until the father has a stroke, a heart attack, that the family has to kind of come together, and we see all the family and their trials and tribulations that they're having to deal with, and now on top of that, their father having had a stroke and is now in hospital. So you have the drunk son who's not able, kind of he's the bum, he's not doing much with his life. You've got the daughter who's a successful kind of businesswoman who is doing better than her husband, and her job is leading her to places that could potentially put her husband out of work. You have the other son who is a writer, difficult second book by the sounds of it, struggling to complete his next book, having to come back to the town he lived in. He was the one that kind of escaped, and he's having to come back. And there's the strangeness of this book. Each of them have a character called Tommy in their lives, but it seems to be this character is at different times of that character's life, and that kind of all comes together by the end of this story. And that's where the kind of the ghost horror vibe comes from it, I guess. But this really hit me home, especially with the writer character coming back home to where you think of as home, as in that's where your parents live, that's where you were brought up, and it did kind of take me back to when my father was dying and he was in hospital, and the last couple of weeks I went back home to where I was brought up, and saw how in so many ways things just hadn't changed. And I get that feeling from the character that we have here, and that sometimes the nostalgia of how you feel about a place that you grew up with is similar, but so much has changed, if that makes sense. And for my personal opinion, it's never good to go back. It's never good to go back to see the house you lived in, you were brought up in. I had a very rough time that week going back and seeing old haunts. I thought it would be a good thing. It wasn't. And that's the kind of vibe I certainly got from this book. And like I say, it took me to a place that I could personally sympathise with, empathise with. It had the whole deal. And plus, of course, Jeff Lemire's doing everything here. It's not done this since Sweet Tooth, and Sweet Tooth for me was a great series as well. One of the few books, runs of stories I've ever read that had that satisfying ending. So I'm glad that he's getting this chance to do it all again with A Royal City. I am thoroughly on board with this book. I'm looking forward to all this kind of genre-busting storylines that Jeff Lemire is going to take on board with this book. I urge you wholeheartedly to support this book, to make sure Jeff Lemire is allowed and has the opportunity and chance to write many more issues of this story, however long he wants to take to write this. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know any of Jeff Lemire's plans for the stories to come. It might only last 10 issues. It'd be great if it lasted 30 or 40. Wouldn't that be fantastic? But we need to support it. We need to get behind this book because it's a treasure. So they were my books this week. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching. If you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button and you won't miss out on any of my videos. I record at least 2 a week. Sometimes you get a few extras in the mix. Give this video a big thumbs up, and down in the comments section below, let me know what you thought of the books that I read. Were you as in love and emotionally torn with A Royal City? Love that book. Let me know. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.